Hello there, YouTube crew. I'm the real Dill, and the first half of the new season of You is dropped. If you don't know, You is about a serial stalker and killer and his cycle of manipulation and violence. The show is told largely through first person perspective and a lot of it through first person narration, and even allows the protagonist to manipulate the audience as well as the other characters. Now, seasons 1 through 3 have done such a good job at exposing more of Joe's patterns so that we get the full picture of who he is and what he does. They do this by way of revealing more and more of his past, as well as showing how he cultivates current relationships. What kind of separates him from other serial killer characters is that he's in this delusional state where almost every kill he makes is feels like his first kill. In fact, the very first kill we're shown seems to the audience at the time like the first time he's crossed the line. But it's actually the third time at least, with an attempted murder tossed in there too. Yet the show somehow manages to make this guy sympathetic. It structures the story and the conflicts in ways that allow him to win you back over. A big piece of that is how his protective nature feeds into his killer instinct. He's not a character like Dexter who's struggling to mold himself into having normal human emotions or appear to have them. Rather, he's somebody who has these emotions but is incapable of controlling them. Many of his kills are framed in a self-defensive manner, and some of them are, some of them really aren't. And but the broader context of his situation just reveals what's at fault with him. But when you have this type of person raised up in those abusive, neglectful homes that he was, it turns his horrific pattern into something that feels natural and deeply human and sad rather than, vehemently villainous. There's also this social consciousness element to him that, it could seem as the writers being preachy, but it's characterized in a way that's closer to, Patrick Bateman trying to say the perfect right things in order, well, in this case, he's actually more thanking in narration to the audience, but it feels more like a way to, you know, hey, I'm a good moral person. I'm not bad. It's like a justification. It's a way to like try to manipulate you into feeding into his narrative of things when it's not really, he's really much worse than he projects himself to be. I don't want to say it doesn't have an ounce of genuineness to it, but it's more manipulative than genuine. Now, each season uses a book or genre to as a motif as they're telling the story and the themes of the story. This season, of course, is murder mystery, and so like the thematic element isn't as rich because of that. It's more about the storytelling type of structure and tropes, which of course makes it the weakest so far since it is so thematically shallow. And there is some character error in it as well. Like there is Joe being snobbish about it, which I think fits perfectly in line with him so far. But he should still be aware of the tropes. Now, you can make the argument that it's not really for Joe, it's just, the exposition to get the audience aware of it. But that really doesn't work for me either. I mean, like, you can kind of forgive certain stuff like that. But with this, it's told in first person narration, so you don't need an outside character to explain to Joe in order to explain to the audience. Joe can just expound to the audience himself. And secondly, the target audience for the show should be fully aware of the genre tropes of murder mysteries. There's been a distinct change in the storytelling of these set of episodes so far, and that's that there's a far more reserved romantic interest in Joe. He's not creating these outlandish fantasies and idolizations, and the actual love progression in this comes across as actual natural rather than manufactured. That's because Joe is really committed to changing himself. I mean, it's not the first time, but like we see an actual narrative shift in this. However, I am expecting in the latter half of the season that there will be some revelations that will distort this. I think they've done a good job of rotating in and out the prime suspects, and they have this good, contradictory scenes where, like, on one scene, this character's like, oh, yeah, this absolutely seems like the killer. And then the next is like, I don't know if the killer would role play kind of like this, and then sometimes it's like, oh, this does seem like the killer would fake like this in front of him to for whatever goal, and then other times it's like, now this just it doesn't add up, you know? I think the most obvious and the one that I personally thought was going to be the killer did turn out to be the killer, but I think his presence in the story was so well honed that you couldn't commit to that character being the killer until it's fully revealed. You might figure it out and be 100% sure on it. I was about 80% sure and just I couldn't go any further than that. And of course, there were times, you know, since that character kind of falls into the background or off screen a lot, that you almost forget about them as other characters are starting to take that prime suspect role. So yeah, they did a good job rotating in and out. But my problem with using murder mystery is that the whole show so far has used those elements in it. So it just kind of feels hollow to see that highlighted and also redundant. And Joe's disposition against the tropes just feels disingenuous because, you know, he's been an investigative person since the very first episode. But it's still a quality show, and if you like serial killers with mystery intrigue elements, I think you should give the show a watch. I highly recommend you. I'm the real deal. Goodbye.